Hey everybody, how are you today? Welcome to Get Ready With Me and Talk About Stuff. I am your host, Stephanie McCown. I say that like there are other people here ever. There's never anybody else here. It's just me, always. So anyway, my name is Stephanie. Welcome to the show. I usually do these on Mondays or Tuesdays, but this week has been weird. And so here we are today. I feel like this week has lasted like 10,596 years. And I've not enjoyed it. I'm going to be honest. I have not enjoyed this endless week. But it is what it is. Here we are. It's Friday night. And my son is gone. And what am I doing? I am sitting here taking time to talk to you because I've missed you. I've missed you so much. And I have got some very cool things that I want to discuss today. Some things that have been on my mind all week because I have been wanting to talk to you all week. And this is the first chance that we get to speak to each other. So here I am. I hope your week is going well. I hope your week has not felt as endless and enduring and in so many ways utterly pointless as mine has. That's all I'm going to say about that. So what is on my mind today, you might ask? Well, let me tell you. Today, and all week long, I have been thinking about Medusa. And she's been on my mind for a while. And I've been wanting to talk about her for a little bit. And, did I do that right? Yeah. I decided, you know what? I need to do a video about her because I feel that she is possibly one of the most maligned and misunderstood people in the entire Greek mythology, wealth of knowledge that we have. I don't know. I don't follow Greek mythology that closely, but her story has always fascinated me. So let's just start with getting to know her a little bit. Who was she? Well, Medusa, despite what you may have heard, was not always a monster. Oh, no. Medusa was a beautiful, beautiful woman who served as a priestess for the goddess Athena. Her beauty was so legendary, it was so well known, that people would actually travel miles and miles and miles. Thousands of people a year would travel to Athens and go to Athena's temple, specifically for the purpose of hoping to see the beautiful Medusa. She was so beautiful. Her hair was said to be so beautiful that it rivaled the beauty of Athena's hair, which I'm sure set very well with Athena, by the way. And she was lusted after by many men. She was, there are many men who wanted to be with her. Men wanted her and women wanted to be her. But as a priestess of Athena, she had to remain a virgin. So she would continually rebuff these advances and she remained dedicated to Athena. Well, one day she was walking along the shoreline of some water over near Greece. I didn't pay attention to which water specifically, and that is indeed another dereliction of duty on my part. My apologies. And Poseidon, the god of the sea, saw her and he thought, well, she's beautiful. I think I want her. But Medusa, being a loyal priestess of Athena, was like, no. And she continued to do that. Now, in the midst of this, apparently Athena and Poseidon were having a little bit of a tiff. I don't know what that was all about. I don't get into people's business like that. But they were having a disagreement of some kind or another. And so Poseidon decided, you know what? Not only am I really sick and tired of Medusa telling me no, I am tired of Athena bothering me with her stuff. So you know what I'm going to do? And he decided he was just going to no longer take no for an answer from Medusa. So he puts the moves on her again. Medusa says no. And it becomes very clear that his intentions, by the way, hold up. I forgot to do this in the beginning. I do need to give content warning. So warning, the following story contains contains some descriptions of sexual assault and rape. And I advise you to use discretion as you listen, because if you are sensitive to that, if that is going to be something that might stir up some unpleasantness for you, this may not be the video for you. Okay, so I've given you the warning now. So it became clear to Medusa that Poseidon was not going to take no for an answer this time. And so she ran to the temple, hoping to find some refuge there. But Athena did nothing to protect her, and Poseidon proceeded to rape Medusa. Well, after Poseidon did what he did, Athena was indeed very angry because, you know, Medusa had just been raped. I mean, that's a horrible, horrible violation of Medusa. So Athena, being the goddess that she was, would not have it. And so she decided that she was going to stand up for Medusa, and she went head to head with Poseidon, and she was victorious, and Medusa became legendary for prompting Athena to take a firm stand against Poseidon and remind him that he does not have the right to do that. I'm kidding. That's not what happened at all. What happened was Athena was angry. Oh, she was angry, all right. But she wasn't angry because Poseidon had raped Medusa. She was angry because the temple had been desecrated. Now, for someone, back in the day, a worshiper of Athena would have to go through like a cleansing ritual after sexual intercourse. And the place they did that was the temple. By the rape happening in the temple had been desecrated. It was like, it had like the essence of the worship of Athena was the quote sexual purity of the priestess and anyone else who was dedicating their a life of service to Athena. So by that act taking place within the temple, it had really in so many ways just irreparably desecrated the temple. And Athena was angry. So what did she do? Well, what she didn't do was go after Poseidon. She did not go after the rapist. Part of that is because it was expected that the gods would do such things. It was expected that the gods would use their positions of power to sexually assault people. I believe everybody was a potential victim there. The gods were not too particular. And this seems to be actually a fairly common theme, and this is a controversial thing that I'm going to just go ahead and say anyway because that's how I roll. You know, it would be silly to think that Greek mythology is the only place where such things happen. If you think that what happened to Mary in the Christian Bible was fully consensual and not at all rapey, I'm here to tell you, you don't understand consent. The imbalance of power there would have made it impossible for Mary to say no. It's not like, you know, God really asked for her opinion. He just said, this is what's going on. So this is, from what I can tell, this is a fairly common thing in the myths of the day, that these gods would use their positions of power to have their way with humans, whether that was sexually or otherwise. And there was really not a lot humans could do about it. So what did Athena do? Athena decided that the person to be punished was indeed Medusa. And she transformed Medusa from this stunning, legendary beauty to a monster, or according to some iterations of the myth, she was transformed into a monster. So she took, for example, she took the beautiful hair that Medusa had, and she turned it into just a head full of writhing, venomous snakes. So no longer was Medusa having this long, flowing, beautiful hair that rivaled that of Athena. No, she instead had a bunch of snakes on her head, and I imagine that was uncomfortable. She was also transformed. Her body was transformed. In the images that I've seen and in what I've read, it seems that her body was made rather serpentine in itself. And in some tellings of the legend, she is given fangs or tusks. She's just hideous to gaze upon. Her skin takes on the pallor of a corpse. She turns like greenish and grayish, and in a lot of the images of Medusa, her skin is like tightened around her bones, giving her that very cadaverous look. So anything that resembled the beauty that was Medusa was completely wiped out by the time this transformation was finished. But that Athena wasn't done yet. Oh, no, no, no. So Athena decides that is one last final isolating blow to Medusa. She was going to make it so anyone who looked at Medusa would turn to stone. Now, what did that mean for Medusa? That meant that she was given a life of complete and utter isolation. Her new form was considered so hideous and so monstrous that it couldn't be, you know, her very existence should not be tolerated. And pursuing her for the purposes of killing her became a heroic endeavor that many men of Greece tried to accomplish. They had put, because of what Athena had done to her, it had become rather a sport to go and see who would be the one to kill her. Now Medusa, she was not going to go down easily. And she ended up having essentially a garden of stone figures of men who had come to the temple and tried to kill her and were unsuccessful, because obviously they have to know where she is. So they looked at her first and they were turned to stone. All it took was one look at her and she was turned to stone, until Perseus came along. Now there's a whole legend relating to Perseus that I'm not going to get into because we're not here to talk about him. But he became the one who would finally kill Medusa, and he would kill her by beheading her. Now you think, how did that happen? I mean, I thought if you looked at her, you turned to stone. Well, part of the legend of Medusa is that she was just, her very existence was so intolerable that the gods themselves gave Perseus items to help him be successful in his mission. And one of those items was a shield given to him by Athena that was of polished bronze, I believe it was. So what he would do is he would hold the shield up and he would look at Medusa in the reflection, and that's how he would track where she was, and ultimately would be able to kill her that way, because at no point did he have to look directly at her. Excuse me for just a moment, I forgot something. I'm always forgetting things, especially on days when it's like, it's just been a day. I don't know. And it has indeed been a day, and I cannot find the thing that I have forgotten, but that's okay because I have other similar things that will work. And it's a little bit darker than what I normally do, but that's okay because I have a surprise for you. It's coming up. Anyway, so Perseus kills Medusa. He ends up taking her head and ultimately using her head as a weapon against enemies, both personal and strangers, and Perseus is heralded as a hero. End of story. Kind of. Now, back in ancient Greece, I think nowadays most people know Medusa as a monster. If you say Medusa, most people are going to think of this woman with snakes on her head, and she's a terrible monster, and if you look at her, she will turn you to stone, and she's just a predator and merciless and yada 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 yakety schmackety. That was not how she was originally perceived back in ancient Greece. The legend of Medusa early on was that she was somewhat of a protector. That, in fact, her name means, Medusa means guardian or protector. So she was seen, yes, she was a woman who had been raped by Poseidon and had been, turned into this otherworldly monster by Athena, but she was also seen as a protector because, not in spite of what happened to her, but because of what happened to her. It's almost like she was seen as so hideous and so frightening that she had the power to stave off other things that were worse, if that makes any sense. Over time, though, the perception of Medusa would change. And that would come much later, though. For so long, she was seen as a protector. I remember hearing in one of the documentaries I watched as I prepared for this, that parents would actually take an image of Medusa, like a medallion or something with her image on it, and would put it on an oven, like the door or whatever of the oven, in order to keep the children away, because Medusa was so frightening that just the sight of her was enough to make the children understand that you don't need to be over there, that is not for you. And that was how parents of the time would keep their kids safe, by using Medusa. So it's very interesting to me that in so many ways things can be both, you know, blessings and curses. That what was done to Medusa was obviously meant to harm her, and it did. But also what came next was something that was used to use her pain to protect other people. So I'm just checking my notes here because I don't want to miss anything. This is important. Okay, so her image began to change during the Renaissance. In 1554, Cellini created a bronze statue, and you've probably seen images of it. It's of Perseus standing atop Medusa's dead body and holding up her decapitated head in a way of declaring victory over her and showing what he had done, showing what he had achieved in killing Medusa. Now that particular sculpture was commissioned by the Medici family. Now the Medici family, if you've studied any Renaissance art whatsoever, you will be familiar with the Medici family and how they used art as a means of control. I'll be right back. Okay, I think I can resume filming now. My dad called me. He's taking my son to their destination, and he got lost. So he had to call me and get directions. So anyway, the Medici family had commissioned this bronze statue depicting Perseus holding up the head of Medusa in triumph, and they would continue to commission similar paintings. And the reason for this was they wanted to show the people of Florentine essentially how very powerless they were. You know, they wanted to, you know, I am of the firm belief that all art is political, and it was certainly the case here. These images of Medusa being conquered by Perseus were a thing back then, and it was with the intention of showing the people, because the Medici family, if you know anything about that time period, they were very powerful. They were very wealthy. They were very powerful, and they really wanted to hold on to that power. And they would frequently fund artists who would create images, whether in sculpture or in paintings, that would reinforce the idea of the powerlessness of the Florentine people and how powerful the Medici family actually was. So this it kind of became like you know how nowadays, you know, I guess maybe not anymore, but within the last couple of years, like when Banksy first became really popular, there became all these knockoff artists. Well, it kind of became a thing back then for people to be making these images of Medusa being conquered in an effort to get in good with the Medici family, because if you could get them as one of your benefactors as an artist, you could do, I mean, that opened many doors for you as an artist, and it would basically secure your financial future for as long as they chose to sponsor you. It was entirely political, though. It had nothing to do with their love for great art or anything of the sort. It had everything to do with finding great artists who were willing to create art that had a specific political message in it, described or disguised rather as just artwork. And I don't know how much, I'm sure that that was common knowledge back then. I'm sure that the people of Florentine were like, yeah, that's a great painting, but we see you. We know what you're doing. But it's, you know, it's pretty obvious now. And I think that even today, artwork, you know, art is still very political. Hence Banksy and you know, any number of other artists who use art as a means to convey a political message. Then you have the knockoff artists who use art as a means to simply try to secure their financial future. It can be the same type of art for very different purposes, but either way, it's an extremely political thing. Even the idea of a knockoff artist is political. But that's not what this video is about. So anyway, during the French Revolution, Medusa's image would be used by the revolutionaries as a way of depicting how somebody who was a victim of power actually became powerful herself. So the legend of Medusa and the story surrounding her and what has happened to her myth over the years has never been, it's never been universally interpreted one way. Her story has meant a lot of different things to a lot of different people. In 1975, the feminist, and I want to make sure I get her name correct, I believe it is Helene Cixous? Oh, wait, first I want to do this. Let's back up like 100 or so years. So Percy Shelley saw a painting of Medusa, and he felt that she was deeply misunderstood. And he wrote the most beautiful poem about her, and I'm just going to read a couple bits of it that really stood out to me. I'm not the best at reading poetry, so bear with me as I try. All we can do is try, and I'm going to try. So he wrote this, and I just thought this was so beautiful. He said, "Yet it is less the horror than the grace which turns the gazer's spirit into stone." And then he goes on to say, "It is the melodious hue of beauty, thrown athwart in the darkness, and the glare of pain, which humanize and harmonize the strain." So he was basically saying that outside of the narrative that has been put upon her over the years, Medusa is not the monster she is made out to be. Her whole essence as a monster is something that people gave her. It is a narrative that was put upon her. She had not been able to speak for herself. She had not been able to share the pain that she endured by going through what she did at the hands of Athena and Poseidon. And instead, these gods had done these terrible things to her, and then not only that, but people after this happened took it upon themselves to create a whole narrative around her that may or may not have been the truth. So in 1975, feminist theorist Helene Cixous, I believe is how you pronounce her name, she wrote The Laugh of Medusa. And she asserted that men had created Medusa as this monster because she represented female sexuality, and it was easier to demonize and vilify women for their sexuality than it was basically to get men to accept responsibility for themselves and for their own uncontrolled lusts, I guess. She said, so it was Medusa was had a monstrous legacy created for her through the fear of the female desire. She said that if they dared to look at Medusa straight on, they would see that she is not deadly, she is beautiful, and she is laughing. She also went on to say that by documenting their experiences, women can deconstruct the sexist biases that portray the female body as a threat. unfortunately, this is something we still deal with today in 2021. There are still stories of girls who are sent home from school because they wore a skirt that was too short, or a sleeveless blouse, or I mean shirt, or something along those lines, and it made the environment too distracting for the boys. So the boys are not asked to take any responsibility at all for themselves or their ability to study, and the girls instead are denied the opportunity to learn because everything is still very much about boys and men not being made to take responsibility for their own actions and their own how much responsibility do men have for the environment that they exist in and that they help create? Because it seems to me that, historically, not a lot. Men are historically given a pass to just shift the blame onto women when something doesn't go as they hoped it would. And they can say that they were distracted by bare shoulders or bare thighs, or just being able to envision the hint of a nipple, because of a blouse a woman wore or something. And the female body is still very much seen as a threat. And that's telling, we see this in the unfortunate narrative that whenever an accusation of rape comes up, the questions people ask all too often are more about what the victim was doing to put herself in the position where she would be raped, rather than who the hell does that person think he is that he would have the right to rape someone just because he wants to. Just because, what right does he think he has to her body? This is still a struggle to this day. And it's an unfortunate thing that, this is a struggle that women have had for, that book was written the year I was born. So that's 46 years. And long before that, these things were issues, and they are not things that are really going away. They are things that continue to be an issue for women. They continue to cause problems for women, and the narrative for women is constantly created for women by people who are not women. Let's put it that way. Rather than asking men to take responsibility for themselves, there's this constant idea that they have to be shielded from from controlling their own desires. And it's just much easier to shift the blame onto women than it is to say, we've allowed men to remain irresponsible little boys for way too long, and we've got to stop blaming women for the things that men do. All right, I'm going to finish this up, and I have a little surprise for you, so I hope you'll stick around. And when I get back, I will finish up with some final thoughts, and yeah, it'll be fun. All right, hang on. I'll be right back. All right, everybody, I am back. Let me adjust my snakes. This is my Medusa. So, back to what we were discussing. So, in 1975, feminist theorist Helene Cixous had said that Medusa was created by men in response to their fear of feminine sexuality, and invited people to, instead of looking at Medusa as a monster, to look at her as someone who is beautiful. And and she is inviting you to look at her beauty. And if you can look at her beauty and you can, take her in as she is, you will see that she is not a monster. She is someone who is beautiful, and she is actually laughing. She is not a threat to you. So in 1981, coincidence? You decide. In 1981, the movie Clash of the Titans was made, and it became just insanely famous. I remember watching Clash of the Titans as a kid, and I don't know why we watched this in our house. It seems like it's something we watched a lot of. Like, I watched Clash of the Titans multiple times as a youngster. It is what it is. But I remember when the scene with Medusa would come up. That was my favorite scene in the entire movie. I waited, like, I lived for that scene, and I wanted to see Medusa. And I remember thinking, You know, of course she's going to kill these men. I mean, they're coming there to kill her. What is she supposed to do? Just let it happen? And I remember I felt I kind of felt bad for her. And I, you know, I watched it again. Not the whole movie. I watched the scene with Medusa again, just a couple nights ago. And I also watched the 2010 version. The 2010 version is especially disturbing because before she is finally killed, she is taunted, she is physically tormented, she is, you know, she is made to behave like a, quote, monster because these men came to where she lived with a clear intent to harm her. What is she supposed to do? Of course, she is going to, you know, she's going to kill them and pursue them so she can do that. So, you know, she's not going to just stand there and allow herself to be killed. Now, of course, ultimately she is killed and her head is used as a weapon. In some legends, it is said that her blood actually, as Perseus flew away, and her blood dripped. He had put her head in a bag, and as her blood dripped and fell onto the ground, her blood became venomous snakes. And it is also said that after her head was cut off, Pegasus actually came forth from her neck as her blood flowed out. And there was another, she gave birth to two creatures. I don't remember the other one, but I remember she's Pegasus's mom. Isn't that sweet? Okay. But Medusa's legacy has changed over the years, even since then. So Medusa now, she's seen as a multifaceted character. She is a beautiful woman. She is a survivor of rape. She is a terrifying monster. She is a protector. You know, she is seen as someone who is misunderstood through and through. She was shamed and silenced and vilified, and she was victorious. You know, she is not any one thing. She is many things. She is a monster capable of killing a man with just one look, but she has also been heralded for her beauty and is seen as a protector. So Medusa, she's a symbol of many things. She's a symbol of rage. She is a symbol of a woman who is sexualized and then vilified. She is a symbol of a woman who is silenced. Not just silenced, but silenced by being, in that she was silenced by Athena, she was silenced by the very entity that should have protected her. And of course, that is very reminiscent of what we so often hear about in when someone comes forth with a credible accusation of assault, they are effectively silenced. So changes in the myth over the years have demonstrated, of course, there is no one universal story about Medusa. There is no one universal truth. She is many things to many different people, and what she represents is probably going to depend a lot on who you ask. You know, she is seen as the ultimate revenge, you know, Athena's ultimate revenge, and also her, you know, Medusa's ultimate triumph. Even in death, she still held tremendous power because Perseus had taken her head and used her head, which still held power, as a means to stop his enemies. So her myth, it can be looked upon as one that causes us to pity her, or it can be looked upon as one that causes us to see that there is still power in what appears to be defeat. There is still triumph that can be had in what appears to be a terrible set of circumstances. You know, even though she was, by some accounts and by how I think she's commonly understood, even though she's commonly understood as just being this hideously ugly creature, to others, she is beautiful and she is protective, and she in her power helps ward off worse things. And you know, in the way I perceive her, she also demonstrates, as what I've talked about so many times on these videos, we are all so much more than the worst things that ever happened to us. Medusa was more than being a survivor or being a victim of rape. She was more than being the recipient of Athena's wrath. She was more than having to live her life in isolation and then having to protect herself as people came to kill her. And she was more than being a victim of Perseus, who ultimately killed her body, but her power, it was still there. She was still extremely powerful, even in her death. The myth of Medusa has been changed so many times over the years, and I think there is a need, a desire on the part of many people to hear Medusa's story from her perspective, because so far we've really only heard it from the perspective of the victors. What was that experience for her? I would love it if there was a movie made showing what the experience of Medusa's life was from her own perspective. Did she feel powerful in the form Athena gave her? Did she feel victimized? Did she feel that the form Athena gave her restored some of her power that had been taken from her when Poseidon raped her? What was that experience for her? What was it like for her to live in just complete and utter isolation, and the only time people came to see her was when they were there to kill her? What was that like? Because it's very easy to cast her as a monster. But then when you stop and think about everything she endured and everything she had to do in an effort to just stay alive, who's the monster? I don't think it's Medusa. In 2018, there was a statue put up in Manhattan right across the courthouse from where Harvey Weinstein was found guilty and sentenced for the multitude of sexual assaults that he was found guilty of. There was a statue put up. It was called Medusa holding... did I write this down? I don't think I did. Shoot. I'll put it in the description. I think it's Medusa holding the head of Perseus, which is essentially just a reverse of the earlier, centuries ago statue of Perseus holding the head of Medusa. And it shows Medusa standing on the slain body of Perseus holding his head in triumph. Which, that is a woman who has taken control of her own narrative, and she has said in that statue, she has said, he does not get to have the last word. He did what he did, and Athena in response did what she did, and people made me who they made me, but none of you get to have the last word about what I am. And I think that's true for all of us. We all go through terrible, horrific things in life, some more than others, and everyone's struggle is different. My struggle may not be yours. Your experiences may not be mine, but we've all gone through terrible things that have given others a sense of permission to define those experiences for us and to define what those experiences represent in our lives. And to me, that statue it can be many things, but to me it is her saying, you don't get to decide that for me. The person who perpetrated some of the worst, the final insult on my life does not get to decide what my legacy is going to be. So that's Medusa. I think Medusa is a fascinating character. I would love to know more about her from her own perspective. I hope that there are some creative minds out there who are working on this as we speak. I would love to read books and see movies and just see someone who has an interest in telling her story take control of her narrative and take it out of the hands of people who, up to this point, have primarily held an interest in portraying her as a monster who needed to be destroyed by someone who was empowered by the gods to do it. So on one hand, a goddess rather cursed her, and on the other hand, the other gods have decided, you know what, she shouldn't exist at all. That's a terrible story. I would love to see Medusa's story told from her own perspective. So I'd love to know your thoughts. What did you think? Okay, I really do want to know this. Did you watch Clash of the Titans, the 1981 version, when you were a kid? And were you as excited about seeing Medusa as I was? Were you like waiting and waiting and waiting for almost the whole movie for that one scene? Or were you just like, it's just another weird Greek mythology monster? I want to know. And when you did see her, what did you think? Was she a monster to you, or was she somebody who rendered pity, or did you identify with her character? What did you think? Tell me. I want to know. Thanks for hanging out with me today. It's always so much fun, and especially after the kind of week I've had, this was exactly what I needed. This is how single moms roll on a Friday night. Let me tell you, adjusting my snakes, wearing my wig, putting on my green makeup, hanging out with you. That's my life, man. If you enjoyed this, please hit the like, thumbs up, and please subscribe, please share. It would really help me a lot if you did that. And whether you do or not, I appreciate you being here. You have no idea what a boost it is to me to hang out with you and to do these videos and then to hear your feedback. Positive or negative, I do want to say, oh no, I already addressed that about not using the comment section as a platform for sexist or racist or otherwise disgusting things. So please be respectful in the comments, and, you know, understand that I don't tolerate nonsense. So you've been forewarned. Anyway, have a great night. Have a great weekend. I don't think I'll be filming next week. It's spring break for my kid, and it gets crazy up in here during spring break because we do all kinds of spring breaky things with the family, and that's all I can say about that. Have a great weekend. Enjoy this beautiful weather if it's beautiful where you are. If it's not, my deepest apologies. I'll see what I can do about that. I will talk with you again very soon. Bye.